Hey everyone, if you've been watching MSI, I'm sure you have seen some of the pro teams pulling out a pretty unconventional pick, especially if you haven't been playing League for more than 3 or so years. The pick I'm talking about is Nautilus Mid. Nautilus Mid has been strong in pro only one time before that I can remember, when FPX won Worlds in 2019. Since then, he hasn't been seen in mid lane much. But recently in patch 13.3, Naut got some pretty big buffs that really just buff him in mid more than anywhere else. His passive auto got some more damage, which makes last hitting minions easier and of course adds more damage when trading. His W costs 20 mana less and has a bigger shield, and his E, which is the most important thing here, got a big base damage increase and AP scaling buff. I'll get into why these changes are so impactful, but first, let me do a very fast rundown of his abilities to make sure you know how he works. His passive is simple. His first auto attack on an enemy does a little extra damage and roots them. It has a cooldown of 6 seconds per target though. His Q is his hook. Unlike Blitzcrank, Nautilus hook drags them to him and him to them, so you meet in the middle basically. He can also use his Q on walls to travel, and it refunds 50% of the mana cost and cooldown if used that way. His W gives him a shield when he activates it, and while the shield is on, his autos are empowered to do a little more damage immediately, then a little bleed damage as well. This ability is also an auto reset, which I'll show you how to use in a bit. His E is his main damage and wave clear ability. He sends out 3 waves of explosions around him that damage and slow anyone when they hit. The cooldown for this is really short and it does a ton of damage. His ult is a targeted ability that travels and damages, knocks up and stuns anyone it passes through before reaching the main target and knocking them up and stunning them as well. Alright, now that you know his kit, let's jump into gameplay and talk about why he's so strong. So basically, Nautilus is strong from insane power creep over the years. Riot likes to just buff damage non-stop on items and champions until their win rate reaches a number they're happy with. So with Nautilus, they buffed his main damage and wave clear and reduced the mana on his W. These are the 2 important things for mid. Being able to use more Ws to shield poke is really nice for a melee, but it's really hard to out-trade him when he does so much damage and is so tanky from the aftershock, the W shield, and is pushing non-stop with his E. In this first game we're going to look at, I'm playing Nautilus versus Irelia in gold. In theory, this kind of archetype for Nautilus would be really hard to deal with because she heals a lot and has no real cooldown to play around. She would be able to just auto me to death and it would be hard to actually kill her with the lower damage that tanks do, but you'll see why it doesn't work that way. So first, at level 1, you're going to be taking W versus almost any matchup, either to shield poke or to auto then W right away to reset your auto like I'm going to do to Irelia here when she walks off for the CS. You can see there, I got 2 autos very quickly. This procs my aftershock too, then before my shield drops, I hit her one more time. As you can see, that's a lot of damage for an ability that also gives you a shield. It's really hard to out-trade Nautilus as a melee champion at level 1. But then while my W is down, I'm going to just collect my last hits. Then while I have no minions to get, I want to look to auto Irelia again to make use of my passive auto bonus damage. As she walks up for her next CS, I wasn't going to be in range to hit her with auto then W for the reset, so I used W right away, but used it a little early. Either way, still managed to tag her with it. She can't do anything about this, especially since her passive isn't stacked. I hit level 2 and tried to hit her with my E, but it would have been better if I could auto her first. The only issue is Naut has very low base MS for a melee. He has 325 and Irelia has 335, and her auto range is higher than mine as well. I'm going to collect my last hits now and crash the wave and then drop a ward. Like I said earlier, in an archetype like this where Irelia has constant damage, I want to avoid straight up all-ins, because she can just auto me to death. This is a dangerous situation where the wave is slow pushing to me and she will hit level 3 first. So it's important I don't give her that opportunity and just don't trade until I'm level 3 as well. I do use E right as she dashes for this last hit though, since she needs one more minion to hit level 3. But now it's back to playing safe until I level up and have my next wave with me. Alright, Nautilus has one of the best ganking setups in the game. It's really insane how easy and strong it can be since he has so many forms of CC and they're all so easy to land. So when I see my Rek'Sai sitting behind me, I just walk up and bait the Irelia into jumping in. Notice, I don't waste hook early. This is where a lot of players mess up because they want to just use everything and CC them as long as possible. The hook is my longest range CC. I want to just start with an auto to root her and then E to slow. Then when she inevitably flashes, I can just walk up and hook like this. Before we keep going, another common mistake here is players trying to predict the enemy laner and they miss. Naut hook has a disgusting hitbox. If you're this close, if you just put your mouse on them, it's very hard for them to juke it. Almost impossible. Alright, anyways, that sets up a really easy kill where I didn't even have to use either summoner, and either did Rek'Sai, which is kind of crazy. Now, most champions would take a while to clear this wave and the next so they could crash before resetting, but Nautilus does so much damage I can clear the wave really fast with E and the empowered damage from my W. Also, the W does the bleed damage to targets very close to the primary target, so you can use it to help clear waves like I am here. I would reset, but I see the enemy Kha'Zix trying to prevent our Rek'Sai from getting scuttle, so I trail behind her ready to use Q if Kha'Zix is in the brush. This is your bread and butter combo. Q, auto, then W for the reset, and E. Lots of CC and damage for a tank that only has a corrupting potion. Here's the best part. Everything I just showed you isn't making use of the most important buffs that make him strong, the E buffs. Those only kick in once you get some points in E. So if we skip to here about a minute later, I'm pushing mid wave and I'm level 5, so I have 3 points in my E now. Plus I had enough gold for Bami's Cinder, which will be be your first item in a lot of games, but we'll go over items at the end. As I'm clearing the last minions, I noticed I really was too far up, so I walked past these and used the bread and butter combo. Q, auto, WE, and look at the damage even though her W negated a lot of it. Then when Irelia goes for these last hits, I just keep autoing, looking to proc my passive. Then I act like I'm backing off as my cooldowns are coming up and instead throw my Q max range and do the bread and butter combo again. I would have flashed to finish her with one more auto, but Rek'Sai took it with Q, which was fine. This kind of pressure is what you can do non-stop to these melee champs. Using your shield to take tower hits or just eat whatever damage you can. Since you build full tank, you have plenty of health and stats to work with, but you still do so much damage. I even took a tower shot there and didn't eat it with my W shield. The key is being able to non-stop shove with your E since it does so much damage to all the minions and the cooldown is too low to really punish it. It's a 5-second cooldown right now and I don't even have any CDR built in yet. And if you're wondering, yes, you can do this same playstyle versus range champion. You push with E, then fish for hooks and do the bread and butter combo. Then once they get low enough, you can use your unmissable point and click CC combo to finish them. It's super easy and strong. I did auto to root, then walked back and used R so I didn't pull myself too far into tower range with my Q, which I used right before she hit the ground for my ult, and then finished her with an auto. The enemy jungler jumps over the wall though, but I still have my W shield and I see our jungler in bottom river, so I save the shield and bait the Kha'Zix in as much as possible, and then Rek'Sai ends up finishing him off. Alright, so that's how you're going to be laning into melees and range really. Naut works against melees and range, but I would say he works best against melee. Now, let's look at some teamfighting examples where he really gets fun. A little later in the same game, the fed enemy bot lane roams to mid, Vayne and Alistar. This is one of, if not the absolute hardest bot lane to deal with for Nautilus. Vayne shreds tanks, and Alistar will keep me off of her. I could just use my hook towards the wall on top river and easily run away, and I know that's what they think I'll do. But I saw my support roaming to mid as well, and I knew Vayne would just tumble towards me and disrespect my damage if I decided to go in. So instead of running, I hook the Vayne, immediately R her before Alistar CCs me, and then hit her with my W and E plus ignite. And just like that, we explode the Vayne through her heal, and she was CC'd basically the whole time from me. Xerath didn't even get to land stun here. From this point, I'm just using as many E's as I can while trying to keep them off of Xerath, but we trade 2 for 2 in a 2v4 scenario against a fed Vayne. Not bad. And honestly, if Alistar didn't push me into tower, I could have 1v2'd them in my wave since I wouldn't be isolated from Kha'Zix. Alright, let's look at another clip here, as it does a good job of showing how to use Nautilus R in specific scenarios. I'm coming out of base, and the enemy team just took our mid tier 1. I saw the enemy Vayne top lane, and she's my biggest threat. The enemy team hasn't recalled in a while, so I hooked the Scion that's using his Q as soon as I'm in range. This is another great part about Nautilus. He is really reliable in gauge. Alright, remember, Nautilus R travels and knocks up, damages, and stuns anyone it passes through. So you have to decide if it's better to hit multiple people or just use it on their main carry instead. In this scenario, Vayne wasn't here, so I ulted Kha'Zix in the back since he was behind all of them, and it hits all 4 of them. So I'm doing damage to them all with my R, my E every 4 seconds, and my W splash damage plus Sunfire burn. One of the best parts about Nautilus though is just how easy he is to play with how much reward you get. You just do a ton of AoE damage while dishing out CC non-stop, and you're so hard to kill since you're building full tank. That's basically it though for how to play him. But let's cover runes and items since they are pretty important too. Your rune page will be like this. Aftershock is a must. You don't have to go dematerializer, you can go cookies, but you can use the dematerializers on ranged or cannon minions. For runes, you don't need to take any AP. You can go attack speed, armor, or MR depending on your matchup, then scaling health. For items, against AP matchups, you would normally go Abyssal Mask, but since that's getting changed, you're going to be rushing Even Shroud versus AP and Sunfire versus AD. Then whichever you didn't get first, you'll get second. So if you went Even Shroud first, go Sunfire second and vice versa. After that, you just build full tank items, which are going to be situational of course. Make sure to start Corrupting Pot, because Nautilus E mana cost will add up, so you will need the mana. Alright guys, and that's everything you need to know to start carrying with the new Nautilus mid. For everything else, there's skillcap.com, with premium courses for every role and skill, taught by the best players. Skillcapped is the perfect platform to help take your game to the next level. Our service is completely risk-free, as you're kept safe with rank up insurance. So what are you waiting for? Get the rank you've always wanted by clicking the link in the description below. Alright, that's a wrap on this one guys. We here at Skillcap want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.